Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Vash and Owen. We are very, very excited to have with us today a special guest who will be bringing us stories from the Tinseltown trenches. I'd like everyone to give a very, very warm welcome to Larry Shapiro. Okay. Yeah. Welcome, Larry.
Hi, everyone. I'm not going to talk about AI and sustainable solutions, but we'll have fun here. My name is Larry Shapiro, and I am the CEO of the Creator Society, which is a management company of online. We represent online creators, intersecting them into Hollywood, whether it's book deals or television or merchandise. We also intersect a lot of brands, working with brands such as MasterCard, Mazda. And I'm also a producer. I've been nominated for 2 Emmys and a Grammy, and I've produced projects for MTV, ABC, Disney, Discovery, and actually currently working on a project with Netflix. But why am I here, right? And, it's like, all right, what is Hollywood about? And I kind of didn't know what I was going to talk about. And my daughter asked me, what are you going to talk about? And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, well, why don't you just tell stories about our dog? And so, I was like, well, I'm not going to tell stories about our dog. But then I realized that's what Hollywood's about, story. So I'm going to tell you my story and navigating Hollywood, which is kind of like this picture. But to understand Hollywood is to understand why we tell stories. And it's not just for profit. Well, all right, maybe it's a little bit about profit. But understanding that the theme of the conference is for a better future, there are other reasons why we tell stories in Hollywood, and that's to entertain and to tap the power of community. And that's really important when we, bring community around stories. But this is not new, right? In fact, the problem with Hollywood is that we actually don't do anything new. We've been telling stories for 40,000 years as a culture, right? In fact, we keep telling the same story. This is a picture of a cave drawing that was 30,000 years old. And just from that picture, you can kind of get the story, right? We know what that story's about. And that was a story told 30,000 years ago. And here's a story that was told in 2009, right? Same story. In fact, even where we tell the stories is the same. These are the Lascaux Caves. I think I pronounced that right, honey? These are the Lascaux Caves in France, right? And those were the cave drawings that were discovered back then. And this is the Screen X in the Dubai Mall. Like, they kind of look similar, right? And these are areas where communities gather and feel safe, and they want to be entertained. Now, when I was in film school, Charlie Chaplin was such a hero to me. For me, he was a pioneer. He came into silent films, and he literally changed the way movies were made. And he created a character, the little tramp, that everyone back then connected. Now, I always wanted to be in entertainment, and I was always wondering how I was going to break in. And so I asked myself, where are the stories from my generation being told, right? Where were my cave drawings? These are questions that I asked about my career and helped shape my career. And then suddenly, August of 1981, and I'm dating myself, something happened. MTV, right? And when I saw that, this is where I could make my mark. This is where my friends were watching. We were telling stories. We were connecting. These 3-minute music videos shaped a generation and pretty much started my career. I was a senior in film school, didn't know what to do. To graduate from film school, we had to make our senior film. So I'm in my dorm room I have my director with me, I was a producer, and we were trying to figure out what we were gonna make for our senior project. The kid next door in the next dorm room, he wanted to be in the music business. He comes to us and says, hey, he's like a real stoner kind of guy. He's like, hey, I want to be a manager and I'm working with these, kids and they want a music video. And we're like, we'll do it. We're going to make this music video. And so we all sat in the dorm room and we figured, this is what it's going to be, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, who are these kids? And this guy, he was like, he had a long beard and his name was Rick. And he's like, oh, they call themselves the Beastie Boys. And so my senior project to get out of film school was the Beastie Boys' first music video called She's On It. And that kind of showed me where to go. And music videos at the time, they were stories being made by young directors who Hollywood they weren't paying attention to. But Hollywood soon took notice. Why? Because we were reaching the youth. Right? We were telling stories in a way that they wanted to have stories told to them. We were shaping culture. We were speaking their language. We connected. It was authentic. So there's a project I worked on with Bruce Springsteen, Brilliant Disguise. And what's amazing was as music videos started to steamroll, right? You saw the communities coming around these music artists, these music videos. And Hollywood couldn't believe that these 3-minute videos had so much power, right? And Bruce Springsteen was just like the nicest guy in the world and really humble and just authentic. I remember when he drove himself to set. Right? Didn't have a limousine. He was just, driving his little Corvette. We all met him outside and we're like, Bruce, where's your wardrobe? And he's like, oh man, it's in the back. And he opens up the door and it's like, and that shirt is like rolled up in a ball, like in the back seat. And he's like, okay. I was like, great, that's fabulous. But he was relatable. Michael Jackson and the Jacksons, there was a true artist as well. Every detail he wanted to control. And, what was happening around these music videos is as we started to make these, and as people like Michael started to make these and push the envelope, we were shaping the production values of a generation, right? Those 15 to 25-year-old kids who we were reaching through music videos were going to be the 30 to 40-year-old adults with money soon, right? And I tell this story a lot, right? Like one of the things that I learned early on in my career was always work with the creatives who reach the youth, right? Now, in 1990, I produced a music video for this heavy metal band called Slaughter, Up All Night, right? I'm sure you all have it on your Spotify playlists. And in 1990, this was one of the top music videos. It was actually nominated for an MTV Award for Best Music Video of 1990. And what I'd like to say is those 15-year-old kids who were watching this video in 1990 grew up and were the adults who were taking their kids to watch Transformers 17 years later. And the reason why I like to say that was because this music video, Slaughter, was directed by a young kid who Hollywood knew nothing about back then. But it was the same director who did Transformers in 2007, and his name was Michael Bay. And I produced his first music video. Now, at that point, music videos were everyone wanted to make a music video. It was just becoming a thing. You were doing a movie, you had to have a music video, right? Everyone wanted to, even if you weren't a musician, you wanted a music video, right? Even this guy, right? Eddie Murphy, right? He wanted to make an album, right? So here we go. Now we're on set with Eddie Murphy and the song Put Your Mouth on Me, which is probably a song that would never get made today. It was like one of the most misogynistic songs ever, right? But we made this video, and you should look it up because it's actually a good video. It's actually pretty funny and really cool. But the problem is that authenticity is so important. And at this time of the cycle in music videos, because everyone wanted to do it, authenticity was starting to wane in these music videos. And I started to get disinterested, right? I wanted to be authentic. I wanted to work with those creators who were reaching the youth, right? And so I wanted to find new creators who were reaching the youth. What were the new stories? Where were the youth getting entertained? What were the new storytelling platforms? Who were the new story creators? And then I bought a PlayStation. And that changed my whole course, right? And if you remember, if you ever played PlayStation, how many had a PlayStation, right? And when you played those games, and between the levels, there was those little story sequences, right? Well, I was producing those little story sequences. And I was taking music video directors to make those little sequences. And this is a project that I worked on. I actually have a producer credit on this game for Electronic Arts called Nuclear Strike. And these video scenes were shot all over the world, right? And the great thing was we had no studios telling us what to do. And because all the information had to fit on the disc, we didn't have to shoot like high-res video. We were shooting these things with handycams, but we were making it really cool and really fun. And I felt like I was back in my music video days. And we produced all sorts of crazy stories. We were hiring stuntmen and lions and big weapons and tanks we were working with. And we were just like having fun, and the kids were loving it. Electronic Arts was loving it, and we were making these crazy stories. And then I realized, you know what? Hollywood should be in the game industry. That should be really cool. These games are stories, and we were growing audiences, and audiences were loving this stuff. So I took a meeting, and I went to the #1 Hollywood talent agency called CAA. And I was talking to the heads of CAA because I wanted them to introduce me to some studio execs so that I can talk to them about this cool thing called video games. And I explained to them the power of community around these video games. They were kind of buying it. And then I said, well, kids are spending how much on a movie ticket? And this was back 98 or so. And they're like $15. And I was like, yeah, movie ticket's $15 and it's 2 hours long. I said, you know how much video games are? And they're like, no. I was like, $60. They're like, kids are spending $60 on a video game? Yeah, they are. And they're playing them for like 30 hours each game. And then they looked at me like Al Pacino in Scarface. And they say, you want a job? And so I became an agent at CAA. And I was the first agent in Hollywood to intersect the video game industry. And I started working with a lot of the clients at the agency, and I was making game deals for Tobey Maguire when he would do Spider-Man. I was like negotiating his video game deal. And I was working with Sean Connery on the From Russia with Love game. And I worked with Tom Cruise on all the Mission Impossible games. But I wanted to work with the creators who are making the actual games. Those were the new storytelling. Those were the new storytellers. So I went on a spree and signed most of the major game creators. I represented the folks from Half-Life. I represented the creators of Doom. I represented Will Wright, who created The Sims. And I represented this company that had this little music game, and I had to fly out to Chicago to meet with John Bon Jovi. And I'm in backstage waiting for John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora. They were just finishing up a corporate event. And I sat there, and they walk in, and here I am, like this agent with a plastic guitar around my shoulder. And that was Guitar Hero. And John loved the game, and we were able to use his music for the game. But my biggest client was that next generation platform, the Xbox. And in my office, I had about like 60 Xboxes just like stacked against the wall. And I would meet with all the studio execs to show them what the Xbox was all about, what this new platform, what this new storytelling platform was all about. And I took a meeting with Chris Albrecht, who at the time was the CEO of HBO. And he was one of the most powerful studio execs in town, right? The Sopranos were going, and HBO was the coolest place in town. And I sat down with Chris, and I brought my Xbox, and I started to show him what it was all about. And then I said, let me set this up for you, Chris. And I unplugged his DVD player, which he didn't like. And I started plugging in my Xbox. And I was like, where's your HDMI? Oh, yeah. And he's like, wait, that thing's got HDMI? I was like, yeah. I said, and you look in the back. It's connected to the internet. He's like, wow. And I said, and you know what? It plays your DVDs too. And Chris was silent. And he's like, these aren't toys anymore, are they? It's like, nope. Now, the Xbox, and with every storytelling platform, you need your lead character. And Microsoft had a lead character. Master Chief. Halo. How many played Halo? Right? Okay. I thought Halo had to be a movie. This was like the one thing I wanted to try and do. So Microsoft was our client. I convinced them to spend $1 million to hire one of the top screenwriters in Hollywood named Alex Garland. And Alex wrote a script, because everything in Hollywood starts with a script. He wrote a script, and then I took 6 actors, dressed them up as Master Chiefs. They all had a copy of the script and a term sheet. And I organized with all the studio lots so that every Master Chief at the same time could walk onto the movie studios and sit down with the executives, and they went to the top executives of each of the studios, except Harvey Weinstein. It's true. I was there when Harvey called. He's like, why didn't I get it? And we're like, you don't make those kinds of movies, Harvey. And the studio execs had only like a couple hours to read the script, and then they had to go up to the Master Chief. And these Master Chiefs were standing there in their office, and they didn't say a word. And they'd go up and say, we like the script, we want the term sheet. So that was around 2006. Now, this very theatrical, and everyone in town was talking about how CIA was taking out and sending Master Chiefs around town. We had 2 studios, Universal and Fox, wanted the project. So now we had a bidding war. We're like, okay, this is going to be great. And then Universal and Fox decided to take our leverage away and do the movie together. All right? But we still had, we were literally negotiated one of the top rights deals. It was like $5 million against 10% of the back end. And this was at a time where maybe a high-end book would get 2.5% of the back end. We had 10% of the back end. This was like my shining moment, one of the biggest rights deals in Hollywood history. Now, Universal had just finished working with another major director, producer, and they wanted Halo to be like the next big thing. So they brought on another producer onto the project, and his name was Peter Jackson. So Peter Jackson comes on. Now his deal, of course, is like another 10% on the back end, right? He had a huge deal as well. Peter brings on a young director, first-time director named Neil Blomkamp. And Fox wasn't really crazy about Neil. First-time director, they're doing this thing, and this movie, we closed the deal, they started to develop the movie down in Weta, down in New Zealand. They were spending all this money on technology. They were building warthogs and stuff like that. And the figures on the back end of the deal, because there's only so much of the pie, weren't making sense to Universal or Fox now. So they came back to us, and they went to Microsoft, and they went to Peter, and they were asking us to reduce our back end in order to make the economics work. And Microsoft was like, no way, this is our biggest franchise. We have the biggest deal. We're Microsoft. You're not going to tell us what to do. You're not going to ask us to reduce. Peter Jackson certainly wasn't reducing. And then there was a standstill. And then the studio said, okay, you know what? We're picking up our ball, and we're going home. And the deal fell apart. Literally, after $12 million of spending and development, the deal fell apart because Microsoft didn't understand how to navigate this world. And what was interesting, because so much pre-production was already done, Peter Jackson and Neil took all that work and made this movie, District 9. And if you watch that movie, all that technology, all the creatures, they were supposed to be the Covenant. Watch it again, you'll see, it's like, yeah, that could have been Halo. And it was a huge success. The deal fell apart. And after that deal fell apart, I was so tired of Hollywood and games. I was just totally exhausted. And I said to myself, all right, where's the next storytellers? Where are the next platforms? Who are those next stars? I asked those questions. And then I walked into my son's room, and he was on his computer. He was watching this thing called YouTube. You win. And I realized that's where the next storytellers were coming from, right? Our son was 15 years old at the time. And this was a whole new generation of artists. And they were talking directly to the audience. And that was just so powerful. And they called themselves creators. And so the creator economy begins to emerge. This whole economy around these kids and adults who are talking directly to the audiences. And this is actually important for you, all of you, as you design things. You should be thinking about what the creators are doing, what is involved in the creator economy. Because the creator economy is over $100 billion right now, right? And it's being spent in all these areas that intersect creators. And they're all disintermediating businesses. They're cutting out the middlemen, right? Airbnb is got a $50 billion market cap, and they got no hotels. But they're the biggest hotel chain. Goldman Sachs is saying that by 2027, the creator economy will be $500 billion. In 2021, there was over 700,000 creators. And they're all making some money. And wherever there's money to be made, Hollywood is soon to follow. All right? And every major talent agency now has a digital department, and they're all representing creators. Hollywood also took notice, right? So they started casting creators in their movies. Hey, if we make a movie and we put in Addison Rae, the kids will come. Or what about the D'Amelios? Let's give them a TV show. And Jen Todrick, who has a show, No Demo Reno, she's in 3 seasons. Bella Thorne and Kian Lawley, on Shovel Buddies. These are all projects that involved creators coming out of online, right? I negotiated Jen's deal for that Warner Brothers deal, and I was a producer on Shovel Buddies for that project for Paramount. But Hollywood missed one component about the creator economy. We didn't need them. We didn't need them. Social media gives us the ability to reach audiences directly. Social media disintermediates the studios and the network. We don't need them to distribute our stories. It's all free. So here's a client of ours, Costin Mayer, and they have almost combined 8 million followers, 88% female, which is a huge, valuable demographic. 60% of their audience is in the US, between the ages of 18 to 35. This is a video we did for Mazda. Now, a commercial like this for Mazda typically would cost for a car company maybe $100,000, $200,000 plus a media spend to put it on TV. They made this on their iPhone. Can I play that?
Yeah, you know I love to see you shine that light. I put that love in every rhyme I write. You and I'll be right side by side, so keep shining, y'all, keep shining. Yeah, you know I love to see you shine that light. Yeah, even when you gotta fight those fights. It's like that struggle make you twice as bright. So keep shining, my dude, keep shining, come on. Yeah.
Fun, right? Very cool. They got paid a bunch of money, but we didn't hire a production company. We disintermediated everybody, made it on our iPhone. Now, with Costumera, we did things even more, right? With almost 2 million followers on Instagram, they wanted to make a clothing line. And we made an athleisure line. Sarah Chessis, who's helped us put that whole deal together, right? And the whole reason why I'm here was because of this deal, right? Her company was doing ghost manufacturing, having all these relationships with all these factories, and we're making a sustainable clothing model. We didn't go into Nordstrom's. We didn't go into Target. We used our social channels to go directly to our audience, right? We sold over 7,000 pieces of clothes with over 2,600 orders. And again, that's why I'm here. And to this, this line of clothing is still going, right? We do a quarterly drop. Now, we just released in November a home card game. And this was now, what I love about this project is it was designed by one of the top game designers in the world. The guy who created MechWarrior actually helped us design this game. He does tabletop games. He used to be my client at CAA. And again, we created this. We go directly to the audience. We market through our social channels. And what's cool is we did this with a company that is owned by Adam Goodman, who used to run Paramount, and Michael Bay, who I worked with on that fabulous music video for Slaughter. So again, these creators are aggregating their own audience and talking directly and selling directly to their audiences. So why do we need networks? Why do we need studios, right? Why do we need Hollywood when we can reach audiences directly? And that's the power of what's happening, and that's the shift of what's going on in Hollywood, and that's how it's evolving. And we got here because of a bunch of 15-year-old kids who just chase the new cool thing. So whenever you're doing something, it's like, look at that youth, see what they're doing. Look at your nieces, look at your nephews, look at your sons and daughters. How are they getting entertained? What are they playing with, right? And what is next? And I do think that AI is the next frontier. And I have a couple of fun videos that we'll watch, and you'll see what's going on, because this stuff is happening so quickly, and it's going to create that next generation of creators. Because I don't know where they're coming from, but I do know they're going to come out of this area.
What if you could make a whole...
Sorry, can I go back? Okay. So this video, Listening to Marvin, was just really popular. And it was done by a DJ all through AI. The soundtrack was mixed by AI. He put in some reference pictures, and the AI thing just knocked this video out. Whoop. How do I go back again? One more? One more? No, let's see. Okay. Pretty cool, right?
What if you could make a whole episode of a cartoon without having to draw every frame?
Okay, now that other one, go back. Okay, so this one, is there a way to just click on that one, or? Yeah, there you go, yeah, just click on that. That one there, yeah, boom.
What if you could make a whole episode of a cartoon without having to draw every frame? What if you could just film with your friends on a green screen and use that to tell your story? Well, now anyone can, with free software. We spent months figuring out how to make an episode of an anime with these tools, and here's how we did it. First, we dress up like a bunch of goofballs and film ourselves on a green screen acting as the characters. Then we take those images of us, plus art created to guide the style, and we use machine learning to generate new images. This gives us an animated character. Then we composite those animated characters onto backgrounds, which were rendered in Unreal Engine. Then we give those elements a little love with movement and effects. Now, rinse and repeat over 400 times. It was a lot of work, but it is crazy that a small group of friends can tell such an epic story visually. And you can watch it right now on Corridor.
Boom, okay? Bunch of friends just hanging out, tooling around with video game engines, AI models, and just making cool animated projects like that. Where's the studio? Where's the network? Where are the writers? Right? Disintermediating, and that's where all this new, that's where all this new content, that's where pop culture is going to happen, right? So to summarize, every platform creates its own stars, and the model obviously is going to change with technology, but it's important to follow the youth for these answers. Again, watch your kids, watch your nieces, your nephews, see where all these kids are happening, because technology changes entertainment behavior, and all these kids are on the front end of where all this stuff is going. What's also important to remember is that we're all storytellers. We're all Hollywood, because we now have global reach, and more importantly, we have influence. So we have to be responsible in our storytelling. And when you make your videos, when you tell your stories online, enrich us with laughter, with tears, love, knowledge, and adventure. Why? Because they help us build a better future. Now, this is my cave wall. So feel free to check out the stories on my cave wall. Would love to hear from you, follow me, and thank you.